Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're listening or viewing this session. My name is Art Jones. I'm the founder of The Art of Standing Out, where we use brand strategy and business storytelling to help you market better and sell more. And today on The Art of Standing Out, we are talking to standout individual, Marc Mawhinney, who stands up for what he believes so his business can thrive and he can accomplish more for the people in the businesses that he serves. So say hi, Marc.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Arthur. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome. And, I think this is a fascinating chat that I'm about to undertake with Marc. I've been looking forward to it because he is quite the Renaissance man. He lives in a place called Moncton, and tell me if I'm pronouncing that almost correctly.
Got it. You make me sound like Leonardo da Vinci, a Renaissance man. I like it.
That's the, and Moncton is in southeastern New Brunswick, Canada. And, I'm an ocean kayaker, so it sounds like my kind of place because it's near Prince Edward Island. It's the Bay of Fundy, which I was kind of romanticizing as I was reading about the area where Marc lives. But Marc says, Art, you don't want to go in that water. You'll freeze. All your limbs will fall off.
I grew up right on, not in the water, obviously, but the house that I grew up in, I grew up in a small fishing community called Mace's Bay.
Yeah.
I'm sure no one's heard of it, but it's, I don't know, 500 people, but we were right on the Bay of Fundy. And yeah, you wouldn't want to swim out there. You would lose a limb. She was cold.
But it sounds like the Baghdad or the San Francisco of the northeastern part of North America, because it's an entertainment capital for that region. It's got culinary delights. It's got fine dining, which I was looking just to find out how to pronounce Moncton, Moncton.
Yes.
And I got stuck Googling and surfing around the area because it just looks like a fantastic place. So kudos to you for growing up there and staying in that region. And maybe because of my little editorializing about that part of the world, you'll get some visitors that'll be calling from Starbucks saying, hey, Marc,
this episode's sponsored by Moncton Tourism or New Brunswick Tourism. Actually, fun fact, we're Canada's only bilingual province, and Moncton is pretty close to split French and English. So I can't speak French. Names spelled with a C because my grandmother is French, but we get along very well here, French and English.
Oh, fantastic. And you're only, how long is it the drive to Maine or New Hampshire from where you are?
Oh, probably give or take about 3 hours, 2.5. No, actually, sorry, it's about 2.5 hours.
Well, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and it can take me 6 hours to get to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we don't have the traffic that you have.
Just that in and of itself. It takes me 90 minutes to get from Tucson to Phoenix. So that's really
we're 2.5, depending how quick you drive. So we're pretty close to the Maine border.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm coming for a visit. I'm going to rent a kayak and I'm going to tour.
Oh, let me know when you're in town.
Absolutely will do. So everyone listening, here's the context for this conversation with Marc. And it's built on this notion that I read a book by Elizabeth Gilbert. She's the author that wrote a book that became a movie, Eat, Pray, Love. She wrote another book called Big Magic, and Big Magic was a fascinating book. It talks a lot about how we creatives create. But I was so interested in the book, Big Magic, that I eventually got around to listening to a TED Talk she did. In the TED Talk, she talks about going from city to city around the world, talking about how people needed to find their passion. And once you find your passion, you'll accomplish more. And one day after, I think it was a talk in Philadelphia, she went home, opened her fan mail, which she always got after doing these talks. And one letter from one woman just was amazing, because she picked the letter up and she reads it, and the lady says, "Dear Elizabeth, I was at your talk. It was a great talk, but you kept saying, find your passion, find your passion, find your passion. And I'm 40 plus years old and I've been looking for my passion. I haven't found it. I was crushed. Now what do I do?" And Elizabeth said, wow. Elizabeth was shaken by that, and she changed her tune in subsequent talks. And she began telling her audience that you can be like an arrow or a jackhammer and know you're going to be a dentist from the time you're 3 years old, and one day at 26 you wake up, you're a dentist. Or you can be like a dragonfly or a bumblebee, going from flower to flower, from field to field, collecting pollen if you're a dragonfly or a bumblebee, as a human, you're collecting knowledge at each job, each academic experience, each mentor, each coach that you might have. And then one day you kind of go eureka. And some days you might not have that eureka moment, but you have all this knowledge and you find out how to take that knowledge in total and do something with it, to go fix something broken in the world. So it's not finding your passion that's the right thing. It's just doing something and executing a plan. And whether you're a dragonfly or a bumblebee or a jackhammer or an arrow, be one of those and just get something done. Just do it. And today we're here to find out whether Marc is a jackhammer or a dragonfly. And so Marc, I did some research before this call, and it looks like before you became natural born coaches and became wildly successful, you were wildly successful in the real estate industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that time and what that was like and what lessons you learned during that cycle?
Well, I started in real estate right after university. So I was 21 years old and I looked probably 15, maybe 14. I came across an old business card in the book, my first business card in real estate.
Yeah.
Thin face. I was like, get this kid a sandwich. I look like I was 80 pounds and looked very young. So I'm shocked that people worked with me, but I worked hard at it and built the business up. And to make a long story short, I spent about 10 years in real estate and did very well there. And then 2009 hit. Now, anyone who knows the real estate industry knows where this story is going.
Yeah.
It's not a unique story because lots of people in real estate got hit hard. But in my market where I was selling, the US, you guys went through everything, 2007 into 2008 or so. And there's that old saying that we say in Canada, whenever the United States sneezes, Canada catches a cold. So in 2009, we caught a cold and our market just crapped the bed. And that combined with mistakes I made, I was too aggressive with growth. Who is it? Is it Warren Buffett that gives that advice? He says, when everyone else is fearful, you're aggressive. And when they're aggressive, you be fearful.
Yeah.
Everyone was fearful. So I was aggressive and it was a wrong move. So Warren Buffett, you owe me money because it cost me money. I was too aggressive with the growth and my business closed in August 2009. And so after 10 years of nonstop success and no stumbles and everything else, I got hit with that business closure, and I went through two business closures, 2009 and 2012 in real estate. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm not having fun. I'm miserable in real estate. That's all I'd done my whole adult life. I said, I want to do something else. And I actually got helped back to my feet by several coaches and mentors. And that's what led to me getting into coaching a few years after that, 2014. And it's interesting, you and I were chatting about this before we started, but I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually coaching for many years with my real estate business, with my agents and my employees. I just didn't know what it was, right? I didn't know it was coaching. And now I could see that, that's what it was. So everything happens for a reason. If anyone watching this or listening is going through a rough time, I could tell you that I was literally knocked on my butt right when this happened, and pretty much everyone wrote me off. They didn't think I would make a comeback, and I was able to come back. So you can do it as well. I know there's probably people out there that are going through business challenges, health challenges, divorce, whatever. You can do it. And I know it sounds like a Hallmark card and they probably don't want to hear that, but I'm telling you that I will give that one piece of advice. Read the book, Thick Face, Black Heart, especially if you're going through a rough time. That should be required reading for any entrepreneurs. It's a guide to how can you deal with the real world. So with all due respect to Elizabeth Gilbert, because I did read that book and I took some good stuff from it, I'm not a woo-woo guy. So she's talking about, I hugged a woman at an event and I think my idea transferred over to her, and the fairies were floating around and positive vibrations.
The muse was floating around, right? Yeah.
The universe, right? Thick Face, Black Heart is the exact opposite of Elizabeth Gilbert, probably. It's very realistic, taking the rose-colored glasses off, but that's what human nature is. And I wish I'd read it in 2009. I didn't find out about it until a few years later. I'm grateful that I found out about it, and I read it several times a year. So Thick Face, Black Heart by Chin-Ning Chu. I highly recommend it.
Chin-Ming Chu?
Chin-Ning Chu.
Well, that sounds like a great tip, Marc. I will go pick this book up, put it in my Amazon stack, and I've got a colleague in New Jersey that's been saying, get the E-Myth for a long time. And I think I'll pick these both up because they are very practical. Not a lot of woo-woo, not a lot of fairies and muses floating around, but just practical, all about execution, all about just getting things done. And, you know, speaking of getting things done, and we were talking before we began about your years as a agency, building an agency, having real estate agents working for you. And I said, it sounds like you were coaching, right? You had two clients. You had the external customer, which was the person trying to buy real estate. And as the expert, the thought leader, you could coach them on how to make the best use of their money to maximize their purchase.
Yeah, you know where it actually helped even more when I was working with real estate buyers and sellers, especially sellers, homeowners, is with the negotiation, because anyone who's in real estate knows that you're going to get haggled to death over commission. Everybody sees a greedy real estate agent and they think they're making the full 5 or 6%, not realizing that's getting split up with your company, the other agent that's involved and all that stuff. So nowadays, when I increase my fees, when I protect my fees and stuff for coaching, it's easy for me to do that because I spent a decade with people trying to beat me up on my fees. So, and same thing, people say, oh my God, you work so, you're so disciplined and you do all this work and stuff. And yes, I do work a lot with coaching and it doesn't feel like work, but I'm used to working, having a phone to my ear 24/7 for real estate, running all over God's creation. I'd leave the house at 7 in the morning, drive all over the place and get back in at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, man, coaching's a vacation for me. This is awesome.
So you know, the idea, I mean, I come from a sales background as well. And you know, the drudgery of dialing for dollars, I would call it, right? Where you're really, as a junior salesperson, that's really what you're chartered with doing. You get the phone in your hand and let's make 20 calls a day. That's your minimum.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. 20 a day, Monday to Friday. I'd take the weekends off from calling. Yeah.
That's right. And it's not easy because the first 4 or 5 calls, you just get pounded because you're kind of not warmed up. You're maybe not in the groove. You're resisting, not really wanting to do it. So when that energy transfers on the phone and the person hears you kind of not really wanting to do it, so they kind of just blow you off. And when you do get warmed up, you get into a zone. You kind of get in a flow state. And when you're open to kind of having the confidence to know what you're saying makes sense and has value, that's when you kind of break through, and then you almost don't want to stop because.
Yeah. And it's funny what you just mentioned, because I've often said that to people, exactly that. It was the first few calls that you feel like, you know, get me a shot of tequila or something here to loosen up. I don't recommend doing shots of tequila before you do cold calling, by the way. But once you get a couple of calls in, 20 was my goal back in the real estate days, and it would almost get to be fun, right? Once you can get it going. The problem with salespeople, and I think coaches are the same way, even though I don't do cold calling with and I'm not a huge fan of cold calling and chasing people, because they're not going to be great coaching clients if you have to twist their arm. But I find with any task that you don't want to do, it's easy to pick something else out that you have to get done just to avoid doing it. So I always did what Brian Tracy did. I'd eat the frog, you know, do the hard thing first that you don't want to do, and then get it out of the way. And if I didn't get to my 20 calls a day, if I only did, let's say 18 calls, the next day I made sure I did 22. So it would even out as well. And an interesting thing, I had one of my managers, my broker manager, his name was Ralph, and he got me into the business. Every day this was in the Stone Ages, back in the early 2000s, before apps and everything else. I would have sheets of paper to track my calls. I would circle the number every time I made the call, and I would drop it off on Ralph's desk at night. And after a while, Ralph said, Mark, you're doing great. You don't have to keep doing this. He's probably thinking I'm killing a forest, right, with all this paper and stuff. And I said to him, I said, Ralph, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me, because if I don't get it done and I know that I half-ass it, I'm going to feel guilty, like, hey, I'm letting Ralph down and stuff like that. So it was just more that discipline of every day dropping that sheet off at his desk. He probably just chucked it in the garbage and said, screw off, Mark.
Well, you created your own accountability process, right? To make sure you did the work. Yeah. And I know when I work with clients, you know, my mantra really, I think that's probably most valuable, is that you've got to commit to accept the responsibility to do the work.
Yes.
Right. If it's defining your ideal prospect, if it's understanding how to build the product that's going to serve them best, you got to do the work, because if you don't do the work, you think you're just going to dream something up and throw it up against the wall and it's going to stick. That's just foo-foo.
Yeah, the problem with the coaching world in real estate was the same way back then. Is you feel like you're on an island by yourself. You're kind of like Tom Hanks in Castaway, and he had the volleyball to keep him company. We don't even have Wilson the volleyball.
That's right.
But you're in real estate and coaching, you're around people, but really you're feeling very isolated. It's just you. And it's very easy for that little voice in your head to say, oh, you've been working hard, take some time off, just relax and watch Jerry Springer or Netflix this afternoon. You deserve it, right? And you have to almost be a robot in a lot of ways, and with that consistency and that discipline, because I've seen lots of successful coaches out there. Those are the ones that do best, is they're able to discipline themselves and they keep themselves accountable.
So, you have a pretty prolific ecosystem or community that follows your leadership in selling as a coach and just being a great coach. 10,000 plus people on Facebook. You engage with thousands of people every year, coaches primarily. And I guess the more you engage with coaches, the more you learn about what coaches need. And would you say discipline is one of the key performance indicators? If you can discipline yourself, that you could pretty much accomplish anything in the coaching field?
Yeah, I think so. As long as you're doing the right things. So I say there's two things to look at with your tasks. First of all, you have to enjoy doing it, because if you don't enjoy doing it, you're not going to keep doing it. Number two is it has to work and actually get your results. So for example, Arthur, if you told me that you loved sticking your head out your window and yelling at strangers passing your house, hire me every day. It was your favorite thing to do and you did it every single day, I would be a little bit doubtful that would get the results, right? So you can find the things that work. The good news is online here in 2018, there are so many different things that can work. So you don't have to be doing 50 different things. But the discipline part of it, a couple examples from my own business, which really worked. My podcast, Natural Born Coaches, we've done close to 600 episodes now since 2014. The first 300 episodes, it was a daily show every single day without fail. Now it's a weekly frequency, which is it allows me to maintain my sanity. But those first 300 episodes really got me rolling, right? Because it was every single day.
Yeah.
Now my daily something, I always say people should do a daily something, is daily emails to my list. So I've been doing daily emails to my list since the spring of 2016. I've never missed a day, and I never will miss a day. But that's where I get a lot of my business as well, from those daily emails. And it's just habit for me. I would never miss a day unless I got hit by a bus crossing a street or something. I'm in a hospital, but even then I've got them scheduled to go out. So I have some time.
You've got the pump is primed, even if you're sitting nursing an injury.
I'll have casts. I'll have the pen in my mouth trying to tell somebody what to type or whatever. But so really the main ways I get my business are from podcasting, and that's on both sides of the mic. So my show, and then also doing shows like this. So podcasting. The other way is through Facebook, and primarily my Facebook group. There's 15,000 members in there now. Yeah. And then email marketing, but daily emails. So before I started doing daily emails, I got nothing from my email efforts, and I was going to cancel my AWeber account. I said, oh, this is stupid or whatever. And I said, oh, I'm going to try daily, because someone I knew had success with it. I thought, what do I have to lose? And then bang, it took probably about a month to get rolling and get the traction. But now I absolutely recommend it to everybody, a daily email. So as long as I'm doing those three things, podcasting, my Facebook group, and daily emails, I know that I'm good.
I would, I listened to, I put some of the interviews like this one that you had done on 2x speed, and I blazed through some as I was wanting to prepare for our conversation.
I talk pretty fast normally, so 2x I can imagine.
Listen, it was fun. Your accent, became more pronounced, and but the content was always valuable, because I could pick the gems out of the stream, and one of them was, you are one of the things that is an overarching theme of what you do is that you are not the guy that's got the what's that movie where where Russell Crowe was at the blackboard, he's doing math problems, and it's the Incredible
Beautiful
Mind.
Mind.
The
Yeah.
Beautiful Mind, right? And he was brilliant, and it was very complicated what he was doing. There are a lot of people that have sales funnels that are, their process is very complicated, and they want you to believe that if you follow their process, you too can live in that mansion on the hill.
Mm.
And your approach sounds like it's the polar opposite, because you are really adamant about, I do this all organically. I email every day. I produce the content for those emails religiously. I podcast once a week, and I do it on a consistent and regular basis. And I have a Facebook group that has 15,000 people. But the way I see my value and the resources that I share with my audience, email is first, podcast is second, and Facebook is last. Although Facebook might be the biggest and most active. Active is not the right word, but when the audience is listening and they hear you have 15,000 people in a Facebook group, they're going, "Oh my gosh, I want that." And I think you would say you can get that if you have an email, you produce great content for the audience that that you serve, and you do it on a consistent and regular basis.
And you don't need tens of thousands of people on your email list, Facebook group, or whatever. I know coaches that have Facebook groups. One of them in particular, Shannon Hernandez, has 300 people in her Facebook group, and she monetizes it. She has a 6-figure business. She's extremely picky. She kicks people out. She has a tool that shows if someone doesn't engage at least once a month, she boots them. And they know that. So when I say engage, you can't just hit the thumb. That's a cheap engagement. I'll hit a thumbs up for a like. They have to actually comment or post once a month. She has them trained in there because one of them was going into the hospital, she told me, and they messaged her and said, "Shannon, I'm going into the hospital in the next month. I'm going to be groggy and coming out of surgery and stuff. Please don't boot me out of the group because I won't be able to." But she's built that loyal tribe, and that's only a few hundred people, but they're raving fans. So I would rather have a smaller Facebook group or email list, but that's more loyal or whatever, than just going for just numbers. If you've got an email list of 20,000 people, but there's no relationship there, and you're hardly talking to them except when you're trying to sell them, that's it, then it's not going to have the same results as if you have that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that they just incessantly, they want more Twitter followers, more Instagram followers, and they hire somebody to go get me more Instagram followers because they think that number, the higher the number, the more access to ideal customers they're going to get. But generally, that's really, you got to think differently. And you have to get more quality, not more quantity. And when you get more quality, and the quality is designed to be exactly who you can bring value to, then it's a straight line, not a dotted line, not a curved line. It's a straight line to giving them value. When you give them value, they're either going to give you a referral, they're going to say how wonderful your content is, or they're going to become a customer, a raving fan. And that's important. But I'm sure people listening, and me included, think, "Oh my gosh, you must have a team of 15 writers to produce content every day for an email."
Yeah, I have a team of monkeys in my garage who are trained to typewriters. So when I know I have to bump the input up, I just go up like, whoosh, "Get going, come on, monkeys, go." No, actually, it's me creating everything, and that's what I recommend people do. I don't hire it out. I know coaches that hire someone in the Philippines on Fiverr to create blog posts for them, and it just comes across.
It's not your voice.
Not their voice, yeah. But what I say is batch them. So when I say I do daily emails or whatever I'm doing, I'm choosing a chunk of time, a couple hours, to write a bunch of them, and then they're ready to go and get scheduled out. Don't do it so that every morning you're sitting in front of your computer 10 minutes before the email's set to go out to your list and try to come up with something. That's putting a lot of pressure on yourself that way.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I know because, prior to this, thank goodness for toner and paper, I downloaded this, and anybody going to Marc's website can get this for free.
Yes.
And it's the real ABCs of a successful coaching business. And I know one of the core ideas in here is that if you don't know who you're trying to bring value to, what are you doing? Right. So can you talk a little bit about knowing your audience and how important that is, and how you guide people to get their head around that?
Well, the first thing I tell people, I deal with coaches exclusively, so I always think in coaching terms, but I think this applies to anyone doing business online, is don't try to appeal to everybody. You know, these people who try to be all things to all people end up helping nobody. So
Yeah.
they have to remember you've got 7.5 billion people in the world. In the coaching industry, you only need a handful of those to have a successful business, as long as you're charging what you should be charging. So 10 clients, you're fine. If you're charging, that's the if, as long as you're not charging peanuts. So you only need a handful of people out of 7.5 billion people. If you can't get 10 people on this globe to pay you money, go do something else, you know, like stop wasting your time. You don't need a lot of people with it. So that's the first thing I tell people: get your head wrapped around that you're not trying to be all things to all people. And you see this with a lot of life coaches, right? Hey, I'll help you make more money, have stronger relationships, lose weight, be more spiritual, blah, 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 blah. And then they're not focused enough on any one thing. So after that, it comes into, I say you do a little bit of market research, but don't run into like 6 months, 12 months of market research. You don't have to do that long. Just get out there and start putting content out there, talking to people, trying things. You may have to tweak and change your course and evolve. You probably will. I know very few coaches that start and stay with the same thing for 20 years, but you won't know until you get out there and get thrashing around and seeing what you like. So I had a client once who was working with men going through breakups. That's what he thought he wanted to work with. After getting out there and talking to enough of them, he said, "This is depressing. I don't want to do it." You know, us guys, you know, we're going through breakups. We're often worse than the women. It's like those memes that you see day one. The woman's crying, she's a mess, and the guy's giving his friends high five. But then it shows day 30 or whatever, and the woman's out with her friends having a great time. The guy's got a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he's like in his bed with
he's got a pizza in his lap and a bottle of Jack, and he's still not happy.
Exactly.
So
the guy I was working with didn't want to work with those people, but he wouldn't have known that unless he got out there doing it. And that's a big lesson, or the takeaway from that is not to overthink it. Don't be a perfectionist. You're not choosing a life partner here. You can change your coaching niche or online business if needed with it. Just stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Take the pressure off and just get out there. And like I said, have conversations, create content, see what works for you, and you'll find your way. It may take a little bit of time. It's not going to take a decade. It may take more than a day or two, but you'll find your way.
I think that's absolutely right. You know, don't try to sell pencils to every one of the 7 billion people on the planet, because some of them don't need pencils, at least not one like this. But when you know who responds to what you have, get more people like that, and you'll be successful. And you know, there's this idea that I know I've heard you talk about, and it's stay out of the mushy middle with your content. Can you tell the audience what you mean when you talk about the mushy middle? Because that needs definition.
Well, so many people online are afraid of offending anybody. So they put out, let's be candid, boring ass content that would put people to sleep in a lot of cases, instead of just taking the filter off and saying what they actually believe. Just before we hopped on this interview, I was telling you before we started recording that I had somebody disagreeing with my opinion out there very strongly. This guy always disagrees with me, so it doesn't surprise me. If I were pushed off my opinions by one person, that wouldn't be good. So I have a friend who's a great guy, one of my best friends. This drives me nuts. He's not in coaching or business, by the way. He'll put an opinion up on Facebook. If anybody says anything in the comments there, he edits his post to appease them. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I'll edit my post. I'll put this different link there.
He wants to be Mr. Nice Guy.
Here's an example just recently. I don't know if you heard about the couple that quit their jobs and went bicycling near terrorist hotspot zone somewhere near Afghanistan. It was an ISIS hotspot.
Wow.
So they had a blog, and they said in that blog that evil is just a made-up thing. There's no such thing as evil in the world, and we're going to prove that. So they had some nice stories in the blog. Somebody gave them an ice cream sandwich, and little girls waved at them, and life is good, right? Life is great. They ended up getting run over by ISIS terrorists, them and a couple other bicyclists that were with them, because they were bicycling near this hotspot. Now, I'm not trying to make light of somebody dying. I think that's bad. But my friend that I'm talking about put up this post about it where he said this qualifies for the Darwin Awards for, just stupid deaths. What the heck are you doing? Somebody disagreed with him and said, well, that's mean. Why don't you post this one instead? Because it's got a nicer headline. Couple pursues their dream in the world. Very lovey-dovey, very Elizabeth Gilbert, the universe has our back and everything sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
Yeah.
He edited his post. And I said, why did you do that? Well, I just wanted to put out the other side or whatever. And that's what he's done a couple times. And I get at him. I said, if you put out an opinion, and I was very clear on that. I said, you know what, it sucks when somebody dies like that, but you should be shaming them because that could save other idealistic utopian millennials who want to go building a sandcastle in the Iraqi desert in a terrorist hotspot. Maybe they won't do it, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, back to your question about the mushy middle, is most coaches wouldn't say that because they'd be like, oh, gee, what if I offend somebody? I don't want to do that. And then they end up putting out, the 150th Jim Rohn quote that they've shared this week, or Oprah Winfrey quote, or Tony Robbins, right?
And they sound like Oprah, Tony, and Jim Rohn. And this is the art of standing out. And this is where we talk to standout individuals who stand up for what they believe. And that whole concept is based on the notion that of the 7 billion people on the planet, there's nobody like you, nobody like me, nobody like each individual listening right now. And when we stand up for who we are and what we believe, we stand out. And with 7 billion people on the planet, when you do stand out, there's going to be other people that hear what you're saying and hear what you believe. And they kind of gather around and say, you believe what I believe. And they listen. And so when you try to serve everybody, you're really serving nobody. Yeah. And when vanilla is a great flavor of ice cream, right? But if you add some spumoni or some cashews or whatever you're going to do to it, it becomes a little bit more interesting. And it's not trying to be perfect for everybody, but there's something for everybody in one of those ice cream things with the salted caramel thing that I would never eat. That's perfect for somebody that just loves that.
I talked to a coach once who scooped ice cream. Funny you mentioned that. That was her summer job. And she said vanilla was the most, the type of ice cream that was most delivered to them because it was the base for so many other ice creams. But nobody would come in and say, hey, give me a vanilla. Like, I have a hankering for vanilla.
That's right.
It's boring.
You don't go to the ice creamery and ask them to make something special for you and say, I just want vanilla.
Yeah, exactly. So the cool thing is when you put out the ebook that you printed up and shared there, that's an example of it. I took the filter off and I just said what I had to say and what I felt like coaches had to hear without the holding their hand and telling them, stay at home in your lazy boy and shoot out positive vibrations out of your behind and you'll get all the clients that you want. That's not true. I put out, okay, I'm going to take the filter off and say what they need to hear. Yeah. When you do that, you're going to get a certain segment of the population or the market who attacks you. But the cool thing is your supporters are actually going to stand up for you and you'll rile them up. So good example, whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump knows how to polarize. I've met nobody that's in the middle with Donald Trump. They either think that he's
either love him or you hate him.
Worse than Hitler, or he can walk on water and he's making America great again. But I've never run into anyone that, if I've said, what do you think of Donald Trump? They're like, I don't know. I'm kind of feeling it out. I want to see a little bit more from the guy.
There's no mushy middle with Donald, right? There's no mushy middle.
Exactly. Look at Kanye West when he put the Make America Great Again hat. I actually thought it was cool with Kanye. He said, I'm going to be trending on Twitter, whatever he said, later today or tomorrow. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, whatever. And sure enough, he puts a red Make America Great Again hat on and the internet blows up for and against, right?
Hold on one sec. I set my alarm. And I set it on the pedestal, so we've gotten about 30 minutes in. And
you've got an app that if the show veers towards...
ignored the alarm and had a remote so I could turn it off because I think the conversation is fascinating. It's so much the organic methodology that you talk about, is so straightforward. It's not like, higher math. It's really just do the work. Be clear on what you're going to do, who you're going to do it for, and get it done.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that I really found interesting, and I know I believe what you believe about this, and I think that people listening and watching should hear your thoughts on the fact that you did a virtual summit a while ago, We had 20 people come in, and I think the theme was, let's talk about pricing.
Mm.
And after you hosted that event, you decided that, I just hosted this event and maybe my own pricing is not right. And then you went off and doubled your pricing. And what were the results?
Yeah, the summit was called the Command Higher Coaching Fees Summit, the very original name, right? And it was funny when I started advertising that I had some coaches that painted me out like Gordon Gekko or J.R. Ewing for doing the summit. Oh no, it's not about that. You're in it for the wrong reasons. And they think you should be coaching barefoot in Calcutta, like Mother Teresa or something like that. But I thought I looked at it because I said, I just recorded 20 some interviews with people that saying you have to be aggressive with your fees and charge what you're worth or whatever. And I haven't done it. So I'm being a hypocrite. I said, I'm going to double my fees or whatever. And of course it's scary whenever you do that, but I actually reevaluate my fees every 6 months. And it's getting easier now after 5 years of doing it, but there's still always a little bit of hesitation because I'm thinking, well, my spots are full now and I'm selling them. Am I going to lose people or whatever? But I've never regretted any of that, any of those price increases. And it makes me a better coach, and it makes the client have a better experience because they've got more skin in the game.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I come from a technology sales background where, I started selling $15,000 things and ended up selling $1 million things. And the interesting thing was, it was 15 or a million. You always knew that if they're going to buy this thing, they're buying it because it costs X, but they're going to save X times some other exponential value. The ROI is huge. Otherwise they wouldn't buy it. And I think of coaching the same way, is that if the coaching that I give you, if it's about losing weight, if it's about accomplishing more, if it's about better marketing and better sales, and if I can teach you how to do better sales, and you get 5 more sales and your average sale is $15,000, that's $60,000.
It's a bargain.
What should I charge you? Should I charge you 10%? Should I charge you 20%? Because if you don't get what I have, you don't get those 4 sales. So I think of it as a value-based pricing, but you can also think about it, if that you can't get your head around that, it's kind of like it's the honorarium that somebody's giving you their money because they're honoring the value that you're giving them to help them accomplish more. And when you have experience that you know that they're going to get a 20% kicker on their selling or their marketing, and they have a $250,000 business, 20%, you know how much they're going to earn. So what are you charging for it? You can either be a national resource, or you can really,
A good example of raising your fees and how low fees aren't necessarily a good thing. Bruce Lee, when he was starting up in Hollywood, he was also doing his martial arts. Was it Jeet Kune Do? He was talking to his hairstylist, because that hairstylist worked with a lot of celebrities, and he was targeting the celebrity niche. He wanted to, because he was great, obviously, martial arts, and
Kareem and all those guys.
Yeah, that's right. But he was charging, I think it was $50 per session. And this guy's like amazing what he does. And he said to the hairstylist, I'm not getting any celebrities to take me up on this. And the hairstylist said, your pricing's all wrong. And Bruce Lee said, I can't go any lower. Like, I put a lot into this. He said, no, your pricing's way too low. I think he bumped it up 10 times. He moved to like $500 and just went bang like that. You're right. Like Kareem, Steve McQueen, all these famous people. The problem was these celebrities were looking at him and he was charging very little and thinking, well, he must not be that good.
Be good, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's value-based pricing cuts both ways. I can look at the value that I'm giving to the customer, and the customer looks at my pricing to establish what the value must be. So if I'm charging $100 an hour, they're like, okay, maybe it's good. But if you say 500, they really have to think long and hard to say, and they really assess the assessment to say, am I going to do business with this guy or not? And I think to your point you made earlier, when it's $500 an hour, just a hypothetical, when they sign up for that, or it's $5,000 to work with you, and it's not 800, it's 5,000, they're going to show up, they're going to be on time, and they're going to do the work because they're accepting responsibility, because they put dollars on the barrel head, and not just a few dollars, they put $5,000 on the barrel head, because and they believe that they're going to go get $50,000 because they spent this $5,000 with you.
Right. Yeah. The big key is when you answer that question, how much, you have to put it out with zero hesitation. because prospects have very finely tuned radars, like spidey senses.
The
So
BS meter. That's the
yeah, if they say to me, how much is the package? You'd mentioned 5,000. So and I say, well, it's 5,000, but, and then I try to sell it, but you get this, and maybe we could do something. If you show any sort of weakness there, you're dead.
if you say but, that's the escape clause. Then they come. Yeah, they want to negotiate.
Well, what I used to do in my real estate days, a home seller would say, "What's a commission?" And I would shoot out right away. I'd say 6%. They'd say, "Are you negotiable?" I say, "Sure, I'll take 7%." Or I'll take 7% if you want to pay me 7%. And they would laugh about it. But then I move on. I'm not going to entertain and get into a big debate about it. If they don't want to pay it, then fine. There's lots of other people that will. There's a great clip on YouTube if people want to check out Don Draper. And if you check for Don Draper confidence, you should find it. And it's a scene from Mad Men where he is working with a lipstick company, and they're annoying clients that aren't listening to his expertise, and they want to do it their own way. So he stands up from the table and he says, "Well, gentlemen, nice meeting you," or whatever. And they're shocked. They're like, "Well, what's going on here?" And he said, "You brought me in here. You're a number 4 in your marketplace now, and you've got X%. So if you want to continue that way, have at it, but I'm not wasting my time here anymore." And he held his ground, even when the guy tried to test him and push him and stuff like that. And he ended up getting the client. Now, I know that that's, Hollywood or fiction or whatever, but it's true. And just watching people like Don Draper and people like that from shows, that's huge because it rubs off on you, right? Bobby Axelrod from Billions. I wouldn't follow everything that he does, but he's got this just absolute confidence, right? And that's what you have to do. You can't have any doubt whatsoever. They will pick up on it, and you'll lose a sale or you'll end up working for peanuts.
As humans, we have a highly tuned BS meter, and when you're offering me foo-foo, my spidey senses tune up, and I know it's foo-foo. But when you're totally confident, and you're providing something because you stand on the platform of previous successes that you've delivered to people in any industry. If you've had success and now you're offering me this, I'm going to look at you and say, well, this person is for real. He or she has done the work to be prepared to deliver value to me. And
this is where consistent content creation is important, because I find most people, when they book a call with me, they're already almost pre-sold to begin with, because they've been following my stuff sometimes for years, or they'll say, "Mark, I've been following you for 6 months," or whatever. They already know that I'm serious. They like my stuff. That call is just a really quick call to make sure they feel good about it before they hit pay for the PayPal button or whatever. So if I wasn't doing this consistent content creation, I would be losing out on a lot of opportunities. And I use what I call a casino strategy, and I won't get into the whole thing, but what it basically means is, just like a casino, when you go to collect your winnings in the cage in the back, and then you go to get the heck out of there with your money intact,
as fast as you
they make it as hard as possible. They've got all these like rows of VLTs, and they got the lights going, and the beeps and the whistles, people cheering, and these table games, everything else. And you're like a rat in a maze trying to get the heck out of there. You're bumping into places that could take your money very easily. And I say with my content creation, I want to be like a casino. I don't want Arthur to be able to turn around without seeing me. So in a perfect world, Arthur, you'd be, and I think you are, in my Facebook group, you'd be connected with me on social media, you'd be on my email list, you'd be listening to my podcast, you see me on other shows. And finally, I've actually had people say, "Mark, I give up. I'm seeing your offer everywhere, and I just give up. Take my money, let's go," or whatever. But that comes because it's like wearing down a rock, water going over a rock constantly with that. And that's where consistent content creation is so important.
There's a guy at Arizona State University, 90 minutes from me, where he's written a book on influence. And he says that kind of what a guy, Chris Brogan, is a thought leader, that he gives content away the way you do. And he believes that if he gives the content away and he makes you smarter, eventually you feel obligated to buy something, because you've gotten so much value for free that, it's kind of like when you go, it used to be, you go to the airport and there'd be the Hare Krishnas in the robes, and they give you a little rose, and they want to get that rose in your hand, because as soon as you take the rose, then they say, "Would you like to donate?" And you've got the rose. You're like, "Well, they gave me this." It's reciprocity.
Yeah.
And that's what the guy at Arizona State University wrote. It's the reciprocity theory. I've got the rose in my hand. I guess I've got to give them something. And when we give content like you do every day, and you make me smarter, I download this, I read it, and it's not a trivial document. It's pages and pages of good content. I say, that Marc guy, God, I got this from Marc Mawhinney. It's free. What else has he got? I go back. I listen to your podcast. I go back. I listen to I get on your email list. And after a while, I say, you know what? I'm getting this, but there's so much more I know he's got to offer. I'm going to sign up. Now,
I'll send you my PayPal link in the chat window now.
There you go. There you go. Well, look, I committed that we were going to go for 30 minutes, and I know I could just keep going, but I hope that I can encourage you at some point to come back and we can continue this conversation. But I want to take about 4 minutes and we'll do the lightning round.
Sure. Cool.
And the lightning round is questions that just tell us more about who you are, what you think, what you believe. And it's a couple of questions, and I'll start really quickly.
Sure.
If you had only one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
Persistent.
That's a good one. Do you have a guilty pleasure that you can tell us about?
Pornography. I'm horrible. No, just kidding. My current guilty pleasure is I'm on a Karate Kid binge with the new series Cobra Kai on YouTube Premium.
I saw you post that in the group, and I've watched a couple of episodes of that.
I'm teasing about the pornography, but I've been watching Cobra Kai and watching the old Karate Kid movies. So there's my guilty pleasure. It's not exactly Oscar-worthy performances, but they're great movies and TV
It's
shows.
deja vu all over again, right? Because the same characters, and they're back at it again. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Starting any business is a risk. Any entrepreneur knows that. Yeah.
What's your biggest life dream?
Biggest life dream, I want to be, it's hard to answer this in a lightning round because there's a whole story, but I say the Sam Phillips of the coaching world. Sam Phillips was the guy that discovered Elvis Presley. So I want to do the same thing for coaches, discover great coaches and make a bunch of coaching Elvi is the plural, I guess, for that. So be the Sam Phillips, not Elvis's Elvi. So be the Sam Phillips of the coaching industry.
That's a good answer. That's an admirable mission. And, I'm reading this, it might be me, right? And everybody listening and watching, if you sign up for the myriad of resources that Marc makes available to us in the world for free, we all come away smarter. And that's a good thing. That's a good mission. If you could ask one person, alive or dead, for advice, which person would it be and why?
Oh, boys. I would probably go with Napoleon Hill and, of course, the author of Think and Grow Rich. I would love to sit down with him and because I've had this debate with my entrepreneur friends about the secret that he talks about in Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. Some people think it's BS to sell the book, more books, but other people, I've heard 100 different answers on what that secret is. I would love to sit down with Napoleon Hill and pick his brain. And of course, he talked to thousands of successful entrepreneurs and titans in business as well. But I'd probably pick Napoleon Hill because actually Napoleon Hill has a dark side as well. Which I love Napoleon Hill, what he did, don't get me wrong, but he also had faults and things which don't really get out there much. And I think he has a fascinating life story. I would like to just sit with him and talk. We all have faults, by the way. I have a lot of faults.
The human condition is that we've got faults, we've got warts and ticks, and that's what makes us interesting. That's what makes us unique. Name 2 books you can recommend.
Well, I already mentioned Thick Face, Black Heart. I'll mention that one again just because it is so important. Another book I really like from a guy that I've learned a lot from, he's big on daily emails too, and that's Ben Settle. Ben Settle has a book which the short title would be The Villain's Book. If you Google Ben Settle Villain's Book, you'll find it. The actual title is something like Persuasion Secrets of the World's Most Charismatic and something Villains. It's a long ass title, but if you Google Villain's Book, it's a short book, but I really like what Ben talks about in that book. Especially if you're trying to, what he talks about with your inner nice guy, you need to put tie him up, put him on his hands and knees and execute him. Get rid of your inner nice guy. If possible, you get walked over. So he writes a book. It's very entertaining if you're especially into pop culture and things like that. But Google Ben Settle-Villain's book, you'll find it.
Those sound like two good books. I'll be dialing in those books on Audible or Amazon. What did you learn last year in 2017 that you doubled down on in 2018?
Well, for the theme of the show, I guess we talked a lot about daily emails. Daily emails, it really became apparent in 2016, but 2017 is when I was a convert to the religion of daily emails. Yep. 2018, I'm opening up churches all over. You know, the weirdos in the airport handing the dandelions or the flowers or whatever, that's me with daily emails. Everyone I talk to, I'm trying to get them onto the daily email, into the cult, so to speak. So I would say daily emails was that big lesson from last year going into this year.
And it's organic, and I think that's a good thing. And it's not the mysterious formula on a blackboard like higher math. It's just create great content, know who you're creating it for, and do it on a consistent, regular basis. And
don't be afraid to sell in those emails. So I always tell an entertaining story or a lesson or something like that, but then it transitions into a call to action. It's not a heavy arm twisting pitch or anything like that. But so many people are afraid to sell in their emails. And it's the same as if someone had a headache and they went into the pharmacy to the pharmacist, their head feels like they're going to explode. And the pharmacist said, well, I'm not going to sell you anything, but here's a pamphlet on headaches. Go read it. Hope this helps. I'd be like, screw off, give me pills, give me something. Right?
Give me something.
Same way with emails. People like your stuff, but you have to invite them to take the next step. And so many coaches and online entrepreneurs, they get part of it down where they release the content and they start to open up a little, which they should, like take the filter off, but then they don't do the next step, which is inviting people to, okay, now here's where I want you to go to get further help from me. So with daily emails, that's the other part of the equation. First, you have to give entertaining emails that people want to open and read and they look forward to reading. But the other half of that cookie is you have to also invite them to take the next step and make an offer.
I think the next step is built on the notion that if you really believe that you bring value to the marketplace, then
just do it unapologetically. And people are so messed up. Well, with email, somebody asked me recently, he had a cold list and he said, how do I re-engage a list, Mark? I'm embarrassed. I haven't emailed it in the last year. And he wanted to give this big, long apology, like they were his spouse and he cheated on them or something like that, like you killed somebody. And I said, geez, don't get rid of the apology or whatever. You can make a joke about it. Hey, sorry, I've been MIA, you know. Yeah. You can make Indiana Jones joke. I went MIA in the jungle to go find Nazi treasure or something. I don't know. But then just move on and just get better with consistently delivering stuff. But people, you can tell who's afraid of their list. And this, I can tell because I'm on tons of lists. I like seeing what people are doing stuff. Some people are very timid of their list. Or it looks like they're looking for approval. And you see this with, please take 2 seconds to answer this survey. Please, it's not going to take long. I really, really appreciate it. They're begging and they're groveling. And that's not going to get people to open up their wallets and throw money at you. So you have to, in a way, treat your list, your Facebook group, everything else like a dictatorship in a way that you're very confident and you're not asking permission for stuff. You got the solution. You're the man or the woman with the plan. You're going to give them a chance for you to help them by offering to them unapologetically and not feeling bad about it.
I just got back from New York and I rode the subway once or twice and there now in New York subways is they're posters that asked you politely to not man spread or woman spread. and what that is that when you take a seat on the subway and whether you're a man or a woman, you spread your legs wide and your arms go out like
and
this.
Let's face it, it's guys. They're always bashing, right?
It's guys. We're always man spreading. And the notion that when you man spread or woman spread with your content, right, then you're making space for your great valuable content that you're putting out there and you're confidently doing it. And when you have that confidence, people respond to it and say, oh, this is so confident. This sounds so great. It's not you're trying to not sound timid about it because if you don't believe in it, why should I?
Yeah. So you act like that guy on the bus or the subway that's got his legs spread a mile long and you got your arms out, you own the place, right?
Yeah.
That's how you have to do.
There's psychology will tell you that the more space you take up, the more confident that you are internally and the more confident people perceive you as. unless you're on the subway, and then maybe you're a jerk. But we're not talking. That's the analogy in this notion of creating great content every day. Just spread your wings, take up as much space as you can, because if you don't, your competition will.
Well, I laugh at people who complain about daily emails. Oh, I'd never do that because I would unsubscribe if someone sent me daily emails. Yet they have no problem with their Facebook newsfeed, people vomiting out political posts, vague booking. Oh my God, I can't believe he did this to me. What happened, Sarah? Oh, I don't want to talk about it. And they're fine with these type things. But if you actually have something that's value that's going to help their life, oh, that's offensive that I'm getting an email a day from this person. I think your priorities are messed up if you're more into those quizzes, on Facebook, which of the Big Bang Theory people are you? Like, you take time doing those and stuff like that. People sharing them around and stuff.
I know those people that take them all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, they should look forward to your emails as long as you're providing them something of value. What's his name? I think Josh Bernoff wrote a book, Writing Without Bullshit. And he has the iron imperative in that book where he says, treat your reader's time as more valuable as your own. And that's a rule that I use with my emails as well. I look at it and I think, okay, if I wasn't Marc Mawhinney, if I was just Joe Smith getting this email, how would I feel about it? Would it be worth my time? And if I feel like, yeah, that would be good time invested, hey, hit send, go with it.
That's amazing. You've given so much value in this time that we've been together. My last question is, share 2 pieces of advice that entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, people wanting to be entrepreneurs, solopreneurs should know.
Boys. Don't be a perfectionist. If you're a perfectionist, you got to beat that out of you as quickly as possible because you'll get steamrolled in business. So get rid of any perfectionist streak. It's fine if you have that, because I think a large percentage of the population has it, but get rid of it. Number 2 would be going back to what we talked about. Stop caring so much about what other people think. Their opinions, they can be offended all they want. What does Grant Cardone say? One week they love me, the other week they hate me. Both weeks I get paid. Yeah. take that approach.
That's right. You got to stand up for what you believe in order to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. Don't be weak in the knees and change your opinions just to placate other people. Like, that's not an appealing quality in business.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. I was excited to have this conversation. I knew that I would get even more value than I got in all, I don't know how many pages there are here, but there's got to be almost 50. And, you've got great content. I have a list of the offers that Marc makes available to the world. The one I put at the top is 10 clients in 90 days. That's pretty amazing. If you want to be a coach or you want to coach anything, and you can get 10 clients in 90 days, whatever the cost of that service is that Marc offers. If you price your 10 clients right.
Yeah, that's my group program. So if you're charging what you should be charging, you could be making $30,000, $50,000 time if you have 10 clients times 3,000 or 5,000. So
you get your pricing right, and you get with Marc.
I have to bump it up now that I've been talking to you, because I'm like, no, that's too low.
Then there's the Secret Coach Club, where that's where you work one-on-one with people.
Secret Coach Club is actually my print newsletter. So it goes out once a month, no digital copies, very stone age. I write it on a tablet in the backyard, and then I have dinosaurs that lug it to Arizona or wherever. Yeah, that's my print newsletter. I've been doing that now for almost 2 years. That's exclusive content. It's not just repackaged Facebook posts or emails or anything. Yeah. That is telling those subscribers what's working for me and the coaches that I'm helping. And I treat them like clients. They also get the ability to pick my brain by email. So I don't let people pick my brain unless it's a client or a Secret Coach Club subscriber.
That's fantastic. That's a good value. The Group Gold program. Learn how to grow, engage, and monetize a successful Facebook group without spending a penny on advertising. And you've got experience with 15,000 people in your group. You've got experience on how to grow and manage and maintain and nurture a group. So that's a good program.
Yeah, I'm biased, but I think it's probably the best Facebook groups program out there. So,
well, I'm a member of the Facebook group, and I've got to tell you that there's a high degree of engagement. And if you pop in there and you stay there for a few minutes, you're going to learn something from the other coaches in the coaching jungle that Marc has created for the coaching community.
I should mention for the Coaching Jungle, if anyone wants to check it out, that's a Facebook group. You go to thecoachingjungle.com. That will forward you directly to the group.
Yep, it's good stuff. And then, of course, you go to Marc's website, which is marcmawhinney.com.
Well, that'll forward, but I have a weird name to spell. So naturalborncoaches.com is the central hub, not naturalbornkillers.com, naturalborncoaches.com.
Yeah, that's right. Natural Born Killers, you end up at a Trenton Tarantino movie or something like that. Well, listen, this has been fantastic, Marc. I know people listening and watching have gotten great value out of this. I know that there's more questions that I want to ask you about what you do, why you do it, how you do it, and who you really like serving, and how they're changed after they get to engage with you. So you have an open invitation to come back and we can do this again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. Everybody listening, check out Marc. I'll put his links in the show notes for both the audio and the video files. And once again, this is Art Jones. I'm the founder of The Art of Standing Out. And this is where we talk to standout individuals who stand up for what they believe so they can make magic in the world. Not the foo-foo kind of magic, real magic that makes money. So until next time, thanks for stopping by, and peace.